And that's why we have Forever 21 CMO Amondo Redmond. Come on up, Amondo. Yay. And so he's going to talk about the initiatives they've been really taking to get their success back. So let's.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Amondo. So, and you came from the faraway land of LA.
Right. Oh, perfect.
You good?
I came all the way from LA. I came last night. I was telling someone earlier, I don't know how this has happened, but my schedule has been, because people know I get up super early, especially on the East Coast, they'll sneak like a 5 or a 5:30 on my calendar. And Forever 21 here in LA has meetings for me from 8 until whenever. And so even days like today, we have a town hall today that I would be moderating, but I'm here.
But you're here with us.
Exactly. And then
much better group here.
Exactly.
You want to be there.
Exactly. So it's just back to back to back. And even things like this, I wish I could stay and absorb and hear, but you know how it is, meeting after meeting.
Well, we are glad to have you here. And as I was, mentioning, and we're seeing transformations from legacy brands like yourself, brands who've been around for a long time, and found they needed to catch up. They needed to take a look at themselves and figure out what's happening, where we need to now come into as I mentioned, the tech, or just how you're meeting customers. Talk about what you sort of figured out, 2 years ago, when even more recently, really, because for you, when you began, but just talk about what you figured out about Forever 21 that you knew had to change and move forward with.
So because we are a legacy brand, there are people within the company that have been there a really long time. And when I joined on the marketing team, I didn't get a group of, new people. I got a group of, I've been here 10 years, I've been here 7 years, I've been here 11 years, et cetera. And I felt this sense of, okay, now what do you want? We've been through so many changes. We're just here to do whatever you say. And I'm like, no, I'm not even coming in with a marketing plan, which is untypical, because most CMOs come in with, I have a very specific idea and I want to execute it. I didn't bring anything. I really just wanted to know the company, and found out that through bankruptcy, like most companies, you become siloed, people go on their own charges, and we just needed to get together again. We just needed to get in the room and say, hello, how are you doing post-COVID, post-bankruptcy, post-new leadership, the small things, not what's our next marketing plan, who are we? Haven't seen you in a while. I didn't even know you were here. Those things are so important. Starting there. And I did that for a couple of months, just getting to know the team, making sure that things were on track. We were getting ready to go into holiday. And I was very clear with ownership that I did not want to impact holiday. Whatever they had going, keep it going. The team needs more bonding and more getting together. And that's what happened. And at the top of this year, I presented our marketing plan for 2022, really based on what I learned from the inside out, what we need to do to make sure our employees are satisfied, so that we can put customers at the focus, so that when you come into our brick and mortar, if our associate is happy and feels like Forever 21 and feels that energy, we got the sale. And that's where we were lacking. And so that is on a great track. And then we started to do small things, like I said, during holiday, like Hello Kitty, which is another legacy brand that has a huge following, and doing things that connected with their fan base to really test and learn how big are these things and how big can they be for the brand.
Well, before you go into that, we do have the video that you guys gave us.
Oh, awesome.
Do we want to put that up just so people can get an idea of the kind of events you guys were having?
Nice. I haven't seen that, so I guess when they say, are you good with this video, that's the video they were talking about.
That is the video. We have like 5 others that you're supposed to narrate to. So.
Great.
So, well, I know that you guys had a lot of success with that event. And talk about how you choose that partnership. I mean, as you said, you sort of, backtracking a little bit, you talked about internally you had to get everyone together. And
Which they are now. We are so,
right on.
our team is so fired up, and just hopefully as you follow Forever 21 on LinkedIn, on Instagram, et cetera, I hope you see that, not just the brand. That would definitely come through this year. We're going to kick some butt this year. But I hope that you start to see that inside and out, that there's some really good things about Forever 21 that has not been talked about, exposed, surfaced in a way that people can connect to. And as much as I do want you to see the influencers in the campaigns we're going to do, which is really high level this year, biggest we've ever done, I want the inside out to show that people at Forever 21 is happy. The associates in the store are treated well. So those are very important things for me as a CMO this year.
And then to make sure, obviously, we even talked about that yesterday with both Daz at Neiman Marcus and Katie in terms of getting the people in the store
That's right.
in line with what you need to do and say and be able to be helpful, because you need to keep that.
That's right.
And are you
That's right.
seeing that more? So was that something that needed to change
Absolutely.
from before?
You were talking about at the beginning, like pick up in store, right? And I love to shop, love to shop. And so I know pretty much all retailers and how their experiences are, from the low end, $5 t-shirts to Neiman Marcus. And so I can bring that point of view of what's competitive, what's not. This is not going to cut it. Pick up in store does not mean I have to pick up the next day. Or what are we telling our customers when they come in with something that doesn't match a SKU, for example, in the computer, which happens a lot. So as a brand, we're aligning on those things to obviously make that important. And that goes back to inside and out, bringing the customers in, but what are we bringing them into,
Well, and that's something, so when Forever 21, you were the brand that everyone knew you could get good, cute, styled clothes. I don't want to use the word.
At a value.
That's the word I want then.
Yeah.
And that's true. And now we're seeing more of that, especially
Yes.
online,
Yep.
and even more so online, but even other stores are popping up with those kind of things.
Yeah.
So you can no longer, that can't just be what brings
That's right.
people in.
That's
what are
right.
you using to really differentiate yourself
Yep.
from these other brands?
Yeah, so I think my number one role this year from a marketing perspective is to do better storytelling and let that storytelling connect to the right channels that connect to people. So if you look at Forever 21 and the way we've talked about both our product and our brand, we have 6 important seasons throughout the year. We have multiple collaborations ranging from Barbie to FUBU to Hervé Leger to Mickey Mouse to Space Jam. We have multiple things that we have to do, not only from a brand and product perspective, but from a collaboration perspective. Over 20 moments throughout the year. And I used to work at the Gap and operated on the typical 4-season calendar. When I got to Forever 21, I just didn't know how the team handled that type of season. It's not season after season, it's season after collab, after partnership, after season, after product drop, after it is like every 2 weeks.
Wow.
So we need to tell those stories better. We need to be able to tell what those things are so that throughout the month, throughout the calendar year, you're connecting with us in an amazing way during back to school that captures you and how you're going back to school or sending your children back to school, or Barbie and how major that collaboration is, to FUBU and how proud, that market is about that collaboration. Summer, which is what ownership says they want to be my first BAM at Forever 21, and how do we bring our summer and swim collection in a way that really grabs people. So storytelling and telling it through influencers, not just because they're influencers, but because they represent Forever 21, that LA feeling of who we are as a brand, and telling that in a way that I hope in 2 years when we're talking bankruptcy and any of those words was like, I forgot about it.
Blip.
That brand is doing it.
Yeah, well, when you talk even about, I mean, even when you mention the partnerships, Hello Kitty, Barbie, what was it? There was
FUBU,
I
Urban
don't know.
Leisure.
Who's FUBU?
So FUBU is a nostalgic brand from the 90s, for us, by us, started by 4 founders, might be 5 founders. One is Raymond John, who's on Shark Tank, and 3 other founders. It was one of the top brands in the 90s for the African American Latino community. And then, like a lot of brands go through its, transition. And now is a really nostalgic brand that us or Macy's and others bring back to life during the year, and it's so successful. It has its own following, especially within the South, similar to Hello Kitty. My reaction to Hello Kitty was similar to yours. Like, I know Hello Kitty, but when they were like, we have to do Hello Kitty, I'm like, okay. And then we started it, and I'm like, this is like it's a brand.
Well, let me ask you about that, because you're talking about these brands who they are looking back. You're basically bringing them to, and you guys definitely have that, looking for that Gen Z audience, or that younger audience, yet you're bringing these blasts from the past. So is that something that you find that this demographic is interested in, or are you just reintroducing it and getting them interested in it?
Our nostalgia moments within both brick and mortar and e-com do so well. That early 2000s, 90s, back in time when supposedly life was really good for a lot of people, that does really well for us. It's almost like a no-brainer. I was sitting on a call, quite honest with you, with our CFO, who I love, and talking about sort of my spin for one of our collaborations. And he said, quite honestly, I would move that money somewhere else because it sells by itself. Those things they just do well. People love that nostalgia of certain moments in time that sometimes you don't need to even put marketing behind it, like a Hello Kitty.
Yeah, you guys sold out, didn't you, with that?
Within 2 weeks, and that was not anticipated to sell out before holiday. We were done before January 1st. Back ordered. We're bringing it back in August based on that back order. So super successful.
And when you're doing this, because, as I said, you do skew your demo, has the messaging changed? Because it's not that your demo is fairly much the same, although I do think we're going to get into how you want to expand it a little bit, but has the messaging changed now? You said you're wanting to tell the story. Mm-hmm. But how is that story being told, or what is that message that you're presenting to that may be different?
So I'm sure most of you know, if you follow a lot of brands are directional in terms of how they're talking to their audience, in terms of this is what we want you to know. I think one of the things we're trying to do, and starting off really at the end of last year, is really letting our audiences tell our story. Going back to storytelling, but connecting with people who can organically tell this story for us. People who either have a connection to LA that makes sense for us. LA is more than just Malibu and Beverly Hills. It's like I say in our meetings, we are from Rodeo Drive to Inglewood to the mountains. That is LA. So how do we tell those stories in organic ways? And we are seeing that traction now with a automatic flip in our organic social media growth. We were stalled for 2 years. Fourth quarter, we started to pick up again, both on Forever 21 and Forever 21 Men's. And what we're seeing is really, we're just not using influencers to use influencers. We're taking a deeper dive into who's telling our stories, how they're telling our stories, and slowly but surely it's starting to connect.
And getting into that, are there particular channels that you are leaning into? I mean, obviously, yes. Organically, that's amazing, yeah. But in terms of where you're investing?
Yeah, so this year I will place a heavy emphasis on TikTok, Snapchat, and obviously Instagram. And I'm looking at, obviously, YouTube as a very successful channel that we can do better at in terms of introducing content and whether that content is shoppable, which I know they're working on some things, et cetera. But those channels we know perform well and can do better for us, and we're working collectively with those platforms to really make sure this year we're kicking it up a notch.
Is it different from what you were doing before in terms of your strategy, your media strategy?
Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the things that you think automatically would work for a brand like Forever 21, it doesn't work. This audience is just so much more transparent and follows because they organically want to follow, not because you're pulling them in. And we're in that middle ground of trying to create what we call, like on our Instagram page, like it has to be a vibe. Like for this young audience, you got to go and be like, oh, this is, I don't want to use the word cool. This is, where I want to be to see content. And you don't think of, especially our brands within our portfolio, Forever 21, Aeropostale, Brooks Brothers, Nautica, Lucky, even now Reebok. None of those brands really are, we're all trying to figure that out. How do we make our brands to be like a vibe for this young audience? And I think Forever 21 is really positioned to do that well. And, posting content just doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't work to go grab a big wrapper and put her in your clothes and post it. It's got to be much more than that, and we're figuring that out along with our creative and how you come to our pages and feel like, I want to be here. These lookbooks is what I want to see. These fashion shows is what I want to see. These previews is what I want to see. When we execute Barbie, we can't look like the other 10 partners that execute Barbie throughout the year. We have to look.
Well, tell me, and I know it's still you're work in progress a little bit, but what are you doing to, as you said, you can't just post that content. You need to give them something else. Is that something else from them? Are you hearing it from your customers, consumers? Is it knowing what they want to learn and including, like, as you said, maybe that lookbook kind of thing? Or how are you sort of upping that game?
So we did a really intensive brand surgery about a year and a half ago. Right before I came in, it got kicked off by Joanna, who's on my team. It's like my left hand. And she kicked that study off with more than 800 participants, everyone throughout the company, including Spark and ABG, brought in all of our demographics throughout our 4 largest regions. Did some intensive shopping experiences across brick and mortar and e-com, and got some really pointed information that was needed to be heard about us as a brand. And the thing people should know is that Forever 21 is doing very well. We're doing very well as a company. So one of the great things about a CMO is like, yeah, we need you to push sales, but you can focus on brand. People are actually coming into our stores. It's what we're showing them when we're coming into our stores is what you need to be focused on. So after this brand study, we got a lot of information that once I came in, it was like we know what we need to know about our consumer, what they like, what they don't like, our consumer journey, how that's offered, et cetera. And now me taking that and pulling together all the things that you just need to be successful, a brand book, a brand guidelines, a pure focus on how we shoot our creative. We shoot more photography than I think any other brand within the mall. I'm pretty positive, and Simon would confirm that. The amount of things we have to shoot is pretty insane. And I'll use that word, insane. So because of that, we have to have a very clear focus on who we are so that moving forward, hopefully starting over the next couple of weeks and months, you start to have a very clear vision of who Forever 21 is, how that's brought about in our photography, who we work with to shoot our campaigns, the influencers we work with across music and sports and Los Angeles community, the people we partner with. We're Boys and Girls Club, one of their top 2 partners. We just won their Cause Marketing Award for 2021 this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so we want to continue to keep those things going and dive deeper. So now that I've done that over the past 6 months, we're now actually about to go into what would be Forever 21's largest campaign ever in its 30-plus years of being around as a brand. And not only largest because of spend, but largest in terms of how we execute it, how we're talking about it, how it comes across. Our event activations here in LA are going to be something to be reckoned with. So you hear the name Forever 21 and you think you've seen a lot of this, but we've been able to be successful by not spending a lot of money on marketing. Over the past 5 years, they've had probably 3 major marketing events, all of which was done for probably a couple $100,000. And that's unheard of for a brand like us, who competitors spend millions on events on a yearly basis. So this is both new for us as well as exciting for us.
Well, for this new campaign, give us a little specifics in terms of really where are you focusing? Where are you, you said you're also doing an event, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But how are you, talk about like what the mix is going to be and how that then leads into the event, or is it vice versa? Or?
So it's a slow rumble. So we have some things coming up before summer. FUBU launching at the end of this month going into March. We'll do a couple activations like South by Southwest and a few others. That will lead us into Hervé Leger, which is also a very successful drop for us that's really aimed at both mothers and daughters. And that'll lead us into summer and spring in swim, where we have not only a collaboration with Sports Illustrated, but we're revealing sort of our what we're calling Forever LA campaign, which will really be a campaign that will be growing over the next, say, 18 months to 24 months, and will include, sports, entertainment, obviously people within LA that really brings to life the organicness of Forever 21. Really bringing to life fashion in ways that you haven't seen a brand like ours do. So whether it's fashion shows that are brought to life that we do every season that's only available on TikTok and shoppable on TikTok, et cetera. And then my personal ploy this year, everyone knows this, ownership knows this, CEO knows this, is I'm growing the men's business. When I came in, I often wondered, why we didn't give the men's business more heat. Last year we got into all stores, which is great. And ownership believes, like me, that it really can be a 50-50 business if we look at our male consumer the same way we look at our female consumer. That's my personal, it's not the organization's, it's my personal asterisk over the next couple years to grow the men's business, that high and low customer who likes sports, who will buy a $700 shirt and want a $16 pair of pants to balance it. That's a big consumer out there for that. There's tons of pages just for that. That's who we want as our customer, specifically for men's. So I have a heavy focus on that, and then making sure we're a gifting destination for our holiday, and making sure that, as we know, and I believe COVID will be in a place where, as we go back into holidays this season, we'll see both emerging and growing ways of shopping, as well as your traditional people actually going into the malls. It's a little more crowded than it's been over the past couple of years. So how you serve as a gift destination for that holiday shopper is going to be important for us.
Well, and you're talking obviously expanding to men and your men's division. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I mean, yes, you have a younger demographic, but I know when we did speak, and I know I've wandered in there, and I'm sure they're like, okay, it's not that forever, but you know,
we're just for you, we're for everybody.
But I'm just saying, like
everybody.
There's some cute things. So it's for my daughter, okay, but I got to try it on for her. So talk about really who is your target.
Yeah, so I'll be on the record about this. I think there's a disagreement between me as a CMO and everyone else in the company about who our demo is. And this is a conversation we have a lot, and it's a fun conversation to have. Everyone from my team, our CEO, we are a young brand who captures both him and her as young as 11 and really keeps them all the way to when they're either leaving college, and I want to stop saying college because we're learning more and more that people are leaning back from college. So if it's not leaving college, you're coming out of 21, 22, 23. And if we look at data, we keep them very well in that span. And then at that point, we'd lose them for whatever reason. So the brand, everyone would say we are a young audience from 11 to 22. I believe that because we are a legacy brand, we are young, and we also have the ability to be really strong between 23 and mid-30s. really because that demographic is one that is getting a job, learning finances, have not gone into super luxury goods and still wants a good value for what they want. That market, I think we're leaving off the table. So that's my opinion. And we're having that battle in terms of, it's not a battle, it's actually fun. It's just in terms of marketing spend, in terms of should we be solely focused on this young demographic. And I'm of that belief that that demographic right after that is equally as important. They're not well off yet. They're getting wealthier, but they're not well off yet. They still want a $20 pair of pants. So yeah, those are our two that I battle about. It's funny, we had a immersion yesterday with our CEO, myself, and our creative agency and my team. And our CEO just kept saying, cover your ears, Amondo. And she kept saying, I want to go after that 11-year-old. And then I come in with like, no, there's a 27-year-old out there that we can make a lot of money off of, but it's fun.
That's great. Well, before I ask my last question, then we'll definitely open it up. Just quickly, and we've heard a little bit about your planning, so I think we kind of know where you're going to go, but just the biggest learning that, I like to end it that way, and how you're just, what you were most excited about, and that you're going to then take with you moving forward.
I've had the amazing pleasure of joining organizations that wanted me to come in with opinion about what we need to do and actually come in with that opinion. Like if you come in with a marketing plan day one, we wouldn't be mad. And I've done that in my past, and that's how I think most marketers work. A brand calls you, you have an opinion of that brand, you see that brand, and you go and say, this is what I think it should be. This was the first gig I've ever had where I was at a stage both in my life and professionally where I could go in with really no opinion and just kind of start day one and say, show me what's going on. And because of that, we are so much better as a company for it, because I did not have a marketing plan in my left arm walking into the building. And I think as I talk to marketers more, if it's anything I can share, is that obviously our job is to drive innovation, be on the cusp of what's next, driving what's now with our consumers, and you have to do that in spades. But I think I have learned at Forever 21, even in a short amount of time, that the team dynamics, the culture, you can't solve the company culture, but you can certainly solve your team culture, how you work together, how you think together, how you vibe together. That wins the campaigns, that wins the awards, that wins the storytelling, because the team is vibing. When I first came in, it's like we're all on Zoom, everyone's looking at each other like, I haven't seen you. And now, even like last week, to be in my office and like our first 30 minutes of the meeting is just having a good time. That is why we're going into having such good ideas, and why we're wowing leadership with what we're trying to do, is because we're better as a team. So my biggest learning is, yes, as a marketer, we have to be innovative, and that's what I love about my job. But what I've learned is building my team, letting others get the shine, makes me a better leader, makes us a better team, and I think I've learned that here better than I did at any other company I've been at.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any questions?
Questions? Several. Start over here. Hi, I'm Ray Adamson with SEPO. I was just wondering if you had plans, or part of your plan was to re-enter global markets.
It is actually. I think ownership's focus is, so let me step back. We have international partners, but they are not owned and operated by Forever 21. So they take our assets, whatever we create here, and they just bring it to life in international markets. And when I'm on calls with them, it's always like, what can we do that's different? And there's never an economical model that makes sense because we don't own them. It's not a profit sharing, et cetera. But I think that with what we're doing here in America, if we get that right, it's a no-brainer that we'll start to grow. When I first came in, ownership said we're putting global on your title for a reason. That's the goal. Let's kill United States in 23, 24, 25. We're back to, not back to, but we're getting a scale internationally, so for sure, yeah.
Hi. First, I want to thank you for your team building and leadership perspective. That was huge, and I think good reminders for everyone. And I'm Maggie Siegler with Dentsu. I love that you talked about your brand partnerships and the drops that you've had, Hello Kitty, et cetera. But I'm also curious what you think about the future of retail partnerships, like Sephora and Kohl's, Ulta and Target. And if I read correctly, JCPenney is going to be carrying some of Forever 21. So I'd love to hear more about that and your perspective there.
I missed the JCPenney call this morning to be here as well. I'm sure they're happy. We're already in JCPenney, and we absolutely see that as a model moving forward to continue to test. One of the things that I want to be sure we're doing, right, because when you do a partnership, say, I'm making this up, this is not happening, this is make-believe. If Forever 21 and Sephora did a partnership, my number one question would be, what is the experience in Forever 21? Then I'll get into whether I want to shop Forever 21 at Sephora. So we've really got to focus on Forever 21, getting that right, which we're doing incrementally this year, in-store, e-com, so that when you go into Sephora, which is already an amazing model like ours, but the brands are matching in a way that really makes sense. And things like JCPenney and a few others that we're thinking about now is intended for that, especially as we grow our models, open more stores, improve our brick and mortar experience. Tagging on to others is definitely a priority between now and 5 years. Yeah.
Hey, Amondo. Lance Dobson from 1-800-CONTACT. It seems like, I mean, especially at Forever 21, you have to be very, very, very tuned into who your audience is. And there are a variety of different audience types. And I'm curious, given what you've talked about, if we could learn a little bit about what your approach is to try and understand who those audiences are, because it certainly seems like you have a data-centered approach to that based on what you've said, but also it seems like you've also maybe spent some time trying to understand the mind of that audience. I'd be curious to learn about that a little bit.
No, it's a really good question, and one that I really take personally. So I'll start off with me as the leader, as a marketer. I've always said I don't know it all. No CMO knows it all. But I am very tapped into culture as an individual, and I think CMOs should be. I don't know of any CMO that just should be a strategic thinker and dare to do that. Like, you should know culture, down to what's on the radio, what's selling right now, who has the top followers, micro and macro, down to, you know, what concerts are going on this summer, what all audiences love. As an individual, I am tapped into that. It's almost like I make it my life. Everything I do is just tapping into culture. I don't go to all parties, but I go to parties to see what's going on. I go to Malibu on Saturdays because I know we're bringing Barbie to life, and I dash into restaurants and go to the beach and see what the locals are doing. FUBU, you know, I go down to Atlanta and chill down there for a couple of days. I grab some of my athlete friends and say, take me around the parties and see what's going on. Even though I'm in my 40s and like, what are y'all doing? I'm tapped into that culture for me. And then I go out and get people who are younger than me and tapped into that culture. I just hired a guy on my team who comes from Nickelodeon and Nike. He's moving out here this weekend from New York, big move, but he's doing events and activations for me. I have resident Gen Z and millennials on my team, both internally and at the agency. I befriend younger people who are motivated for the sake of tapping into their energy just to see how they live and what they're talking about. So Lakers invite me to a game, I'll bring a young friend that's like 22 because he's not going to talk to me about some stuff that's not going to help me in how I look at Forever 21. So I'm tapped into it. My team is tapped into it. Our job as CMOs is not to just come up with marketing plans. It's to live and breathe culture. You should know what's dropping from sneakers to all that type of stuff. So that's how I tap into it. Me, my team, I put younger people around me. My team is so young and so diverse across genders, backgrounds, but young. because that's our brand. And then I have the institutional knowledge like me to balance it out in other areas of my team. So I know that was long-winded, but I'm very passionate that CMOs should be connected to culture and not just, I know marketing, but can talk about culture with culture creators.
Great. Well, I think that covers it. So thank you, Amondo.
I know it's probably long-winded.
No. Thank you, Amondo. I really appreciate it.